chapter 13, the chapter of Kshetra and Kshetragyam. As we read on, we wonder if there are two parts to it, two different entities, Kshetra, Kshetragyam, just two names given to the world of matter and the world of spirit. Are they different? This is what the Vibhaga, so the chapter is called Kshetra, Kshetragyam, Vibhaga, Yogaha. Vibhaga, to distinguish between one and the other. Are they different really? That is the whole crux of the matter, and therefore we need to understand the qualities and functions of matter and the qualities and functions of Kshetragyam, the spirit. Once we understand their different functions, we will try and merge the two to see whether how they impinge upon each other and how they influence each other basically, and therefore it will give us some insight into how we lead our lives, how we should lead our lives, and where does it take us at the end of the journey. So is our journey merely the end of the body in this birth? No, it's a very long journey. It's a journey of millennia, because the end of this body is not the end of the journey of our spiritual evolution. That would be too short a time for us to realize anything. It's too short a time even for us to read one full text and understand it fully. One short lifespan is much too short. So we are talking about this journey through millennia and the goal, and in order to reach the goal, certain kind of understanding of Kshetra and Kshetragyam is what Krishna is trying to get Arjun to understand, so that the road to the goal is even clearer, even more clear. Okay, so we were actually somewhat in the middle of chapter 13. I'll pick it up from verse number 15, chapter 13. Sarvendriya gunabhasam Sarvendriya vivarjitam. So that Kshetragyam, the spirit, what is the nature of the spirit? It is actually shining through all my senses, which means what? It is making my senses experience. My senses by themselves, the sense of touch, smell, etc., they are jad by themselves. They cannot experience anything. So Kshetragyam, the spirit, is making them experience. And yet at the same time, Sarvendriya vivarjitam, that Kshetragyam does not have its own senses. It does not have any instruments of Indriya, and yet it is such a light. It is such a light, abhasam is the word used here, which is making us experience things. Asaktam sarva bhritchaiva asaktam. Now, if we are unattached, not we, that Kshetragyam itself is unattached to us. We don't even have to seek detachment from it. It itself is unattached to us, but we don't know this, because every time we experience something, we feel that not only are my senses sending me the sensations of pleasure or pain, sukha or dukkha to the mind, but it is the entire me, the self, the mistaken self. We think, yes, I am suffering, but who is the I, the sufferer? That is going to be cleared by Krishna to Arjun, who actually started this whole journey into truth with his suffering. With his suffering about so-called killing his own dear relatives and his gurus in the battle. So Bhagwan is now trying to clear the smoke to say, Arjun, let's first understand who is the sufferer. Which part of you is suffering actually? What is it that really carries the suffering, and because of which you say, I'm wretched, I'm miserable, and I'm despondent? That's what was the situation of Arjun. And very often we in this sansar, because we are as sansari as Arjun, we are caught in situations and conditions outside of us in which we feel the same way, disappointed or despondent or dejected or depressed, and that suffering we carry with us as our own burden. This is the clarity. Now Krishna's job is to get Arjuna out of the suffering and to get us out of our suffering. which doesn't mean that Krishna is going to stop, is going to bring about situations and conditions all around us which will be like heaven and which will have no suffering for us, and he will make everything conducive and pleasurable for us. Oh, not at all. The sansar, the very nature of sansar is that that everything which is born will decay, and we know all that. And all relationships and vastu and vyakti in which we derive pleasure is going to decay anyway. So that decay again causes us pain. So decay and regeneration, birth and death, and sukha and dukkha is part of sansar. Krishna is not going to change that for us. We have to be very clear about that. By knowing jnana, no conditions or situations or sansari sukha dukkha is changing. Yes, but me, the experiencer, once I realize what is it in me that I am allowing to experience the sukha dukkha, and is it the real me or is it the mistaken me? Once that distinction is made, the vibhaga is made, it's actually the death knell of suffering. It is the end of suffering. So it's only jnana, it is only the knowledge which will bring the end to suffering. No amount of changes of situations outside. Acha, ab aise kar lete hain. Now this marriage doesn't work, let me try another marriage. This job doesn't work for me. It's a terrible, the conditions are terrible, the boss is terrible. Let me try another job. This country is getting a bit too corrupt and polluted. Let me try moving to another country. Everything we have tried. Changing countries, vastu, vyakti, situations, partners. No. In the end, we will all come back to the same situation of feeling slightly unfulfilled, disoriented, disenchanted actually. Disenchanted meaning having lost that initial spurt of enchantment with whatever new thing we have grasped. That enchantment is gone. After a few years, after a few months, after whatever. It will go. So that's not the kind of sukha dukkha hanging on that we are looking for. That needs a vibhaga or a distinction between the kshetra, kshetragyam, the field of matter that I am. My matter is what? My body and my mind and my intellect. Mind and intellect is in sukshma form, it is in subtle form, but it is still matter. This is Vedantic language, okay? We are not talking physics, where they will say, okay, come on, prove to me that mind is made of matter. No, we are not taking up any challenge from empirical physics. So let's stick to the Vedantic definitions. Now, moving on to verse number 16. Bahirantascha bhutanam, inside and outside of us. Where is that kshetragyam, that experiencer? Of course it is inside of me and outside of me. Which means what? It is a field of energy. It is a field of intelligence, not intellect. Intellect only is that small part of us which helps us to analyze things, to understand things and to make decisions. You know, it is just that small organ. It's not a physical organ again, but it's that small instrument, let's say, which makes us, gives us the capacity to have, make our decisions and analyze things. No, intellect is not what we are talking about. We are talking about this energy field which can be termed as intelligence. There is an intelligence and awareness, and it's not just inside of me, it's all around. Acharam charameva cha, it is in movable as well as in immovable things. Charam, acharam. I'm in verse number 16. Sukshmatvatat davigyeyam, because it is so subtle, so sukshma, sukshmatvat, that it seems as if it is durastham chantike cha tat. Sometimes it appears too far away. Why far? Too far for those who have not engaged their mind sufficiently, have not made their mind sufficiently subtle to try and understand it. For them it's too far a knowledge, it's too far. And what about Chantikecha? It's easy and close and understandable for those who have engaged their mind in it. And it is also Chantikechata, which means close in another sense. And that sense is that of course it's part of us, part of every atom of our body. And therefore it is so close that it is us actually, and yet it seems so far away because it is unfathomable. It is inexpressible in words and indescribable. So we say, oh, maybe it's not for me. It is something too distant from me, durastham. And therefore, this whole mysterious thing, it seems mysterious, but actually it's not. So Krishna is trying to demystify this whole thing for Arjun, so that Arjun begins to understand this basic difference and to lead a life which is actually untouched by sorrow and raga, attachment, and dvesha, revulsion or hatred. Raga, dvesha, sukha, dukkha are our only maladies in life, are our only diseases in life, mental diseases. But this knowledge seems to be too far for those who are not, those who are in the mode where they will feel that it is too difficult. So actually we all have buddhi. Then you say, अच्छा वो तो बहुत बुद्धिमान है, वो तो जिंदगी में कितना अच्छा कर रहा है, see how successful he or she is in life. इतना बुद्धिमान नहीं समझ सकता, नहीं, because Vedanta says there are 3 kinds of buddhi. So there is this tamasic, or no, not tamasic, the sthula buddhi. Sthula means the very the buddhi which is unable to understand even the commonplace things, you know, कि अच्छा ये मोटर कार कैसे चलती है, ये microwave या washing machine, you know, some very very basic functions in the world. How can I invest my money? No, actually that is for the tikshna buddhi. The tamasic buddhi or the sthul buddhi is unable to function without the help of someone, always taking the support of someone, even to drive them to places and to operate the bank. Simple, very very simple worldly things. Why do people get upset with me? They are unable to even reflect upon that. What is it that I said? I just blurted out something. Very very basic, rudimentary level of existence. That is sthula buddhi. Okay, yes, but you know, my son, daughter, my family, they don't belong to that category. They are very smart. They are operating in the world, they are earning a great sum of money, and they have been offered the best possible jobs by multinational companies. Why? Because they are buddhiman. Okay, so Vedanta says this second kind of buddhi is tikshna buddhi. Tikshna buddhi is where we are able to apply our mind and our intellect and use it in the sansar, in trying to obtain this or that, in trying to understand the things of business or other subjects of the world like psychology, whatever may be our field. Scholarly people, tikshna buddhi, they are able to. Now, Vedanta says, sthula buddhi, yes, knowledge is going to seem like a very distant dream. Okay, tikshna buddhi, yes, I am smart, so I should be able to get it. No, tikshna buddhi is when you are applying the mind in getting and obtaining things of the world and are succeeding. But sukshma buddhi is what is needed. The third kind of buddhi is the sukshma buddhi, which means it can grasp subtleties. It can grasp that which is not visible, not describable, not experienceable by the senses, of course, by the sthul, inert senses, and yet the mind can grasp it, you know, like metaphysical topics, like spirit, or is there life after death? If so, where does it reside? If I disown my body right now and say, look, this is not me, this mind is not me, this intellect is not me, the real me, then who am I? What remains after that? My intellect is unable to grasp or to move in these areas. A sukshma buddhi can. And guess what? The tikshna buddhi can gain all its intelligence, all its sharpness. Tikshna means sharp. All its sharpness from the knowledge of the world. I can get a management degree from Harvard, and you know, I can sharpen that tikshna buddhi further. How do I sharpen my sukshma buddhi? How do I even awaken my sukshma buddhi? And therefore, it is said that meditation is the only instrument. Why? Because meditation is the only instrument where, when we go into deep meditation and we drop our awareness of the body, of course, we are not aware after some time of where we are seated, and not aware of our breath, not aware of our going to the sukshma, deeper level of mind, also not aware of the mind. After a while, let the mind silence. And what are we trying to fix in the intellect? Also silent. After that, there is nothing left. So there is no physical or sthula instrument left in the meditative state to experience sansar. In meditation, we are awake, we are alert, we are extremely alert, let's say, vigilant. But there is no instrument left because we have silenced the body, mind and intellect. There is no instrument left for us to keep experiencing the world outside through the body, sthula body, or through the imagination of the mind running here and there, or through the intellect trying to analyze something or the other that I may have read. All these instruments are silenced, and all these instruments are used only for experiencing sansar, and sansar is outside of us. The only thing that can help us experience the inner is meditation. We have to sort of fold inward, and therefore it's important to make meditation a part of our life. It's not, no matter how much we read, we are just going to get more and more good at using the terms and expressions of Krishna and of the Vedas and say, this term means that. Of course, that is a very scholarly knowledge. That's not going to give us an insight, a view of that inner world. So, meditation as a practice is our only recourse, is our only method. Now, verse number 17, Bhagavan says more about this entity, this spirit which exists, and yet we can't experience it with our sthula buddhi, with our tikshna buddhi, our sharpest of minds, and that is avibhaktam cha bhuteshu. It's undivided. It's not something I can chop up and keep aside. Avibhaktam bhuteshu vibhaktamiva cha sthiram. It appears as if it is divided. Why? Because I see everything as separate in the world. My country and their country, my religion and their religion, my sect and community and theirs, my body and theirs, my neighbor and me, this person and that person, my appearance and his appearance. Everything we see in this world as distinct from me, and everything appears diverse. So it is said by Krishna, vibhakta, it is distinction, eva, as if distinct. The whole world is not distinct. It is an expression of only one and one truth. So vibhaktam eva, as if it is just sthitam. So it is existing in all. Sthitam, existing in all. So how can we at all say that the space in this pot and in that pot is separate? Can we physically separate the space and show it as different? Show the quality of the space of one pot and the other pot as different? No amount of laboratory experiment can expose this kind of a difference. No one can prove it. The quality, the distinction between the space of one pot and another. How is it different? Show the different qualities. In the same way, we cannot show the distinction between one person and another person in the roop of spirit. The spirit is indivisible, avibhaktam. But then we are able to say, what is the distinction then? So look at the two pots. They're made of different clay, they're made of different colors, they're made in different shapes. One is tall and the other is squat, and they're used for different purposes. We have different roles in the world. One is holding wine and the other is holding water. The functions are different, the shape is different. So are you describing only the shape, the nama, rupa and function? Yes, I am. Of the pots? Yes. So is that the real distinction? Then we fall back and say, is that what I was doing with human beings too? I was only describing the outer, the nama, the rupa, the distinctions of functions and audha and position and wealth and poverty. Is that all I was describing? Yes, we were describing so far only the outer of human beings, and then all their different associations. of communities and sect and religion and country. Those are our associations of this particular body and mind. They are not even us. Okay, so Chasthitam, it is existing in all. Yes, verse number 17, top line. Second line, Bhuta Bhartrachate Tadgenam. So that spirit which is in all, Chasthitam, is actually the support of all. Support meaning that everyone draws their sustenance, their life force from the same spirit. All the radios are getting their signals from the same radio waves. The radio waves are the same, yes, but the radio devices are different. In the olden days, they made these big boxes. The radios looked like big boxes, and then they became more and more fine and more sleek and more portable, and we could carry them in our pockets. And I have even seen a radio which is attached to a pen, a writing pen. It is so nanotechnology. Yes, so in our outer form, we have become very, very sophisticated. You know, we use the best methods to transport ourselves, and we have the best technology for communications and for transport. But our minds, of course, are still very sthul, because we are still looking at only the outer. अच्छा, radios इतने बदल गए हैं, और radios के forms इतने बदल गए हैं, I don't even recognize it now. You ask the present generation and look at bring one of those pieces from an antique shop and ask them कि वो क्या है? So you'll say, maybe it's a trunk, maybe, I don't know what the new generation will say, but it is unrecognizable by the next generation. That means we in our outer form are distinct. But the moment you switch it on and it catches a radio wave and it tunes in to that spirit, let's say, or the radio wave, the child will say, of the present generation, the grandchild will say, this is a radio. I know Radio Mirchi. So how does he recognize? Because that instrument is tuning in to its source, to its original source, which is the radio wave. Bhagwan is saying just Hitam, that original source of our very life force. Sorry, am I audible? Okay, sorry, that was a call I had to cut. So our very life force and our sustenance is drawn from the same source. Just like every radio, unrecognizable, distinct, diverse, is drawing its life force from the same. That's what Bhuta Bhartracha Te Tat Geyam. Understand that the support of all, Tat Genam. Know this. Bhagwan is saying, know this. Tat Genam. Grasishnu Prabhavishnu Cha. That means it is the generator and the devourer, which means it causes us to be destroyed and to be regenerated. That we know, life and. Okay, number 18, verse 18 of chapter 13. Here we say, Jyotishamapi tad Jyotihi. How do you describe it? We describe it. Now again, it's indescribable. We have to use allegories and upma and metaphors. So this is a metaphor. It's the light of all lights. Okay, tamasah, beyond, paramuchyate, beyond darkness. How is it beyond darkness? The spirit, which is the sustaining power and the force of not only me, but of every living and unliving creature on this planet, char acharam, because it is undistinguishable. Light in its physical form that we know is actually, it can be extinguished. A flame can be extinguished because it's a physical light we are talking about. But this metaphor, light, for our spirit which is being talked about, the distinction ends over there. The example has its limitation, because that spirit cannot even be extinguished. Not in this life, not in any life. And therefore an unextinguishable light is what it is. That's why it is said, in a sort of poetic way, that what holds you is beyond darkness. It's just a manner of speaking. Poetic. Jnanam Geyam Jnanagamyam. What is it actually? What should I do with it? Hare Krishna is saying that is the only Gyan worth knowing in this life. You may have studied a million subjects and studied and got so many skills and arts and crafts and become nipun, expertise, gained expertise in so many things. Doesn't matter. That's all knowledge of the world. Gyayam Jnanam. This is the only knowledge worth gaining. Gyayam means worth knowing. And Jnanagamyam means the only knowledge which will take you to your goal. So how beautifully it's an alliteration in a sense. Jnanam Gyayam Jnanagamyam. Worth knowing, and the only knowledge that will take us beyond our petty little material suffering lives. Hridhi sarvasya vishtitam. So, where shall I find it now? Which pilgrimage should I undertake in order to find that? Because now I am energized by Krishna's words and I say, oh right, now I have to find it. Hridhi sarvasya vishtitam. Hare Krishna is saying, don't undertake any pilgrimage or upasana or yagya or tapa. Nothing will, no action, no karma kanda outside is going to reach you to it. I am right there where you seek me. Right there where you seek me, which means in you. Hridhi. Now, Hridhi here doesn't mean the physical heart which is pumping blood into our body. Now, that's just a physical heart. Hridhi here, of course, means the divine self. That self in you, which is the spirit. Hridhi sarvasya. Not only in you, sarvasya bhai. Every single human being, the saint and the scholar and the sinner, the scholar and the illiterate, and the rich and the poor, and the Jain and the Buddhist, and the Jew and the Christian. It doesn't matter. These are outside distinctions which have been created by us. Their distinctions are so artificial that Bhagavan doesn't even bother to elaborate upon them. He just says these are outer distinctions, and they are just distinctions as if they are imaginary distinctions. That's all he says. He says vibhaktam eva. That's all. He doesn't even elaborate on it. Hridhi sarvasya vishtitam. I am seated right there. So which pilgrimage? Don't seek. Don't even try to seek the infinite. You are the infinite. So I often give the example of our own mind. Try it and beyond the higher, more sukshma, the intellect. And I say often that put your mind to the intellect, which means look at the intellect and tell me or tell yourself which is its boundary, what is its limitation beyond which it cannot go. क्या आपको उसका और छोर दिख रहा है? Can you see the outer shores of it? Can you see the ultimate limit of the mind, of the intellect, or even the mind, by the way? It's imagination, and intellect is the analytical mind. Is it possible? I mean, so what happens is when someone asks us to do it, what do we have to do? We have to first of all draw our mind inward from the engagement of the senses and sight and sound and shabda, from the outside engagement into the sansar of vyakti, vastu, paristhiti, ghatna, relationships, everything outside, and draw the mind in for a moment and say, let me think. We have been asked to think whether the intellect or my mind or my intellect has a limitation. I have to draw, there is no choice but to draw the mind inward in order to even answer that question. And whether you can find the limit or not, only you can say. But the whole idea of this exercise is have the ability and the power to draw yourself in. Kurmonganiva. Kurmonganiva, in chapter 2, Bhagavan had said, like a tortoise which can withdraw its limbs right into its shell when it sees the danger of sansar. So when we see that the sansar is actually quite meaningless, and of course we have to function in it, let us not be deluded into thinking if functionally we have to withdraw. No, functionally we have to do all our duties, karma yoga. But psychologically, if we understand that this sansar is only leading us on a long wild goose chase, it is a wild goose chase, because at the end of it, it is only Janma and Maran, and the whole cycle begins again, the whole cycle. Wild goose chase, back to square one. So once we understand that, we seek the answer, and Bhagavan says, sorry, the answer is Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam, seated right there within you. You have to learn to withdraw, draw within, to fold up and disengage from the sansar outside, and that we can do. Sannyasis can do it all the time. Even while they are talking to you, their mind is drawn within. But for us ordinary people, we can try and learn this art and skill of drawing within in meditation practice. Then in the beginning it's difficult. We are sleepy or lazy or restless. Of course the mind is restless. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Man, uska very nature is restless. You can't change the nature of man. We can only go beyond it. And then say, nahi, man is very chanchal. Yes, Arjun, Krishna has already agreed. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Pramathi balavad dridham, he had said in one of the earlier chapters. Balavad dridham means it is so strong, what? The mind. That it is dragging me hither and thither. Yes, it will drag you. But meditation is the only recourse we have to draw within, to learn the art, and it comes slowly, like any art. I did not learn driving in a day. And even if I learnt it in 20 days, I was not skilled at it. And then even if I learnt it in 3 months, I was not confident about it. So it took years. Swimming. Take any skill, even in the outside world. Leave alone the skill of the inner world. So we have to be persistent. But because we wanted to drive and to learn driving, we persisted. We could have given up on day 3 saying, oh, too tough. I can't even figure out, because my mind is too confused between the clutch and the brake and the accelerator, and sometimes I use one for the other and I can end up in an accident and I give up. I could have said that. But in all worldly knowledge and skill, we persist. Why not in the world of spiritual evolution, where it is said the first skill is meditation? That only skill we have is meditation. Where do I seek it? Hridi Sarvasya Vishtitam. Vishtitam, I am seated there. Can you also come and sit by me? Because you are now seated or flying about, let's say, all over the world. Number 19. Iti kshetram tatha jnanam. Thus, Bhagavan says, I will conclude the this subtopic, not chapter, the small subtopic of kshetram and kshetra, the world of matter and spirit. Kshetra tatha jnanam. I am concluding. Geyam choktam samasataha. And this I have stated briefly. Krishna says, samasataha. I have stated this knowledge of matter and spirit to you, Arjun, very briefly so far. Okay? But how can I, with my attention, Arjun must be thinking, and I am also thinking, and we are all thinking on the same page, if I love the world so much, my attention is on the world so much, then how can I reach that knowledge? So Bhagavan is saying with a lot of compassion. In the second line, he is saying, Madbhakta etad dvigyayah. You can know me or know this particular topic of matter and spirit. Become my devotee. See how smoothly, how beautifully Bhagavan slides from Gyan into Bhakti. He says, don't worry, just surrender, be my Bhakta. Somehow, someday, keep listening. One day I will lead you out of this mess which you called your sansar. Because your sansar is never free of Sukha and Dukha, which are opposites actually of each other, or Raga and Dvesha, and Man and Apman, and Shita and Ushna. Discomfort of the body and the mind and the intellect, and we are tossed between all this all the time. This is a messy world to live in. So Bhagavan says, alright, just surrender to me. Here I am, waiting for you. And this invitation itself gives us such a sense of relief to say, okay, I'm not driving alone, I have a co-driver. And he's saying, hang on, don't be confused. Never mind, I am there. Mad bhakta etad vigyayah. And verse 19, last phrase, Madbhava yopapadyate. So, once you surrender to me, I'm waiting right here. Even if you become my bhakta, keep listening. In the beginning, it's confusing knowledge. Just like my driving was very confusing. Oh, accelerator and this and that. Of course, automatic cars are rare. Bhakti is maybe like the automatic car, because there we just had acceleration and the brake, and Bhagavan says, I'll take care of the rest. When you have these bumps on the road and all, see, I'll take care of the gears. So he's taken care of some part of it. Okay, just come to me and enter me. Madbhava yopapadyate. Enter me means settle nicely into me. Settle in me. What a beautiful invitation. It sounds like, what a relief. Then I'm not so afraid now to be on this spiritual road alone. And it's a long journey. And I keep being told that, yes, it's too abstract for you. And you're too sansari. And you're too materialistic. Oh, no. Bhagavan says, don't worry, whatever you are. Come, once you are with me, I'll be with you. So with that compassionate invitation, invitation to be Mad Bhaktaha, Bhagavan moves to verse number 20. The field and the knower of the field. Once again, which has actually been concluded. Once we slip into dhyan, we will realize how easy it is even to reach Bhagavan. Yes, our engagement with the world is what is so tenaciously shackling us to the world. But Bhagavan says, not only you, there's something else which is shackled to this world, which is chained to the world. And that is the tough part. What is that? These two fields, matter and spirit, actually make our entire experience. Inner world, outer world, world of matter, world of spirituality, whatever you say about experience, everything is encapsulated. Only the entire experience is in this two. That's what Bhagavan is saying in verse number 20. Prakritim purusham chaiva. Matter and spirit are vidyanadi ubhavapi. Vidyanadi. So know that both are beginningless. Both are part of you now, but they were there even before, beginningless. Matter and spirit. Vrikaramscha gunaschaiva. Okay, so what about the modifications, the changes, the ups and downs? Which part feels that? So modifications, vikaramscha, gunamschaiva, and qualities, good and bad and evil and high and low and compassionate and greedy and envious or jealous or magnanimous or malicious. What are these? These are just qualities. Okay, gunaschaiva, vidhi, know this. Vikaramscha gunaschaiva vidhi prakritim sambhavan. Prakritim sambhavan. These are qualities, distinctions, ups and downs, modifications, changes, only in Prakriti. Only in Prakriti, which is the world of matter. Okay, that means I can go beyond all this. Yes, so that's the hope. That is the glimmer of light which Bhagavan is shining and saying, अरे भाई ये सब changes सिर्फ प्रकृति के लिए हैं. Prakriti sambhavan. Last word in verse 20. So why worry? That means you can go if you try, if you are determined, and if you have the capacity, sukshma buddhi and capacity, then yes, you can. Prakriti and is the only changing thing. Then what is changeless? Yes, he is going to tell us what is changeless. That spirit which gives us the experience of all these things. So actually, what is the whole essence and crux of the Upanishads? Gita is encapsulating only Upanishadic knowledge, right? So we can say Upanishad is trying to tell us what? That the universe appears diverse, everything appears different, me and you distinctions, hum or wo, phala or better or worse, shapes, rang roop and guna. all disappears, but there is a oneness which pervades everything. That oneness is called Advaita. Means without, Dvaita means duality. The whole study of scriptures which we are doing, there are 6 philosophies in Hinduism. We are studying only one Advaita philosophy, and we are sticking to it. The others will not lead us too far. And so therefore, Bhagavan says only Prakriti has all these changes. Now, 21st verse, Bhagavan says, Karya Karana Kartritve Hetu Prakriti Ruchyate. Now, this Prakriti, that's matter, what is it causing you through all its actions and all its karma? Yeah, Karya Karan. It is causing you your karma phala, naturally. It's my likes and dislikes and my desires and my greed and my envy which causes me to do some action कि मुझे ये भी चाहिए वो भी चाहिए ऐसा होना चाहिए. I want to make that alteration in some situation outside or a person outside. All actions are driven by some desire. Now that desire drives me my actions, and those actions, whether good or bad or compassionate or non-compassionate, all will cause me Karya Karana, Karma Phala. Okay, so all actions are done in Prakriti only, and all Karma Phala are attached to attached to what? That we are going to find out. But Karma Phala comes from the actions of Prakriti, which is my matter self, the matter self. Purushasukha dukkhanam bhokatritve hetu ruchyate. And this spirit, this Chetana, is allowing me to experience Sukha or Dukha. Now, what is Sukha actually? Pleasurable situation. Any condition outside which is conducive to what I like. So what may be pleasurable to one person may not be pleasurable to another person. So if someone is having a Bacardi or a whiskey, to another person it may seem the bitterest possible thing. So that means that there is no such thing as absolute absolute pleasure or absolute sukha. It differs from person to person, situation to situation. Absolute truth is one, but everything in the world, there is no absolute. There is no absolute. So this, whatever I experience in this world, sukha, pleasure is my pleasure. It is conducive to the conditions that I particularly like. That's all. And dukkha is those conditions which I dislike. So these the sukha dukkha is extremely limited to one's own personal conditioning, let's call it. Okay. Now, my body, my senses are not sukshma enough to experience by themselves. I need something else, like this table. If I hit it, there is damage to the table because it's a wooden table and I've taken a hammer and smashed it. Damage is there to its body. But it does not experience sukha or dukkha. It doesn't say, wow, what a smashing I got. Or it doesn't say, oh, horrible, I'm feeling pain. Sukha and dukkha are not part of it because it is a world of matter. Our body is also a world of matter. Then how is it that we end up experiencing sukha dukkha? That is our chetana. Then we are entering the world of chetana, sentiency, spirit. That is what distinguishes us from non-living things. Okay, so Purusha is that Chetana is the conditioned being. What do you mean conditioned being? That conditioned, it is, if you think it is a being, an entity, it is conditioned by our world of matter. But is it really? Is it really conditioned by us? It appears to be conditioned. Let's see how. Bhoktritve hetu ruchyate. It seems to experience the pleasure and pain of our pleasure and pain. My body feels it, my mind feels it, and I say that I. Which I are you referring to? I is Kshetra also and spirit also, matter also, spirit also. So which I are we referring to? The changing I or the unchanging I? The changing I has no astitva of its own. It's not an entity anyway. A few years from now, it will be on the funeral pyre, turned to ashes. So in any case, the Sukha Dukkha of that entity is actually irrelevant, meaningless. So then who is actually feeling the Sukha Dukkha? It becomes more and more mysterious. What Sukha Dukkha am I carrying forward? Now this mystery makes it even more, this whole enigma, it captures the mind, and we want to know more about it and say, okay, so tell me more. And that's how Bhagwan goes on to verse number 22, and he says, Purusha prakritis thohi bhungte prakriti jan gunam. That spirit, that chetana, sentiency, which is seated in you, is seated in your prakriti, let's call it. Prakriti stho. Sthita in the prakriti. It is in that word. Let me clarify again. This is not a physical combination of matter and spirit. It is as if it is seated in prakriti. It is as if that sentiency is seated in my body, but actually it is only associated, untouched. Let's see how. Bhungte prakriti jan gunaha. It is helping us experience, because only sentiency can help us experience something. Like I said, the table, although it may be smashed, it cannot experience Sukha Dukkha. Sentiency in me, when I am hurt, mentally or physically or psychologically or whatever, I experience the hurt, the sentiency, the Kshetragyam or the Purusha, let's call it, because Krishna uses the word Purusha, is only helping me experience. Okay. Karanam guna sango swaha. Okay. So, what is it that is giving effect to good and evil? Karanam guna sango swaha. When we are attached to these qualities of all the qualities that we have of kama, krodha, mada, lobha, moha, raga, dvesha, when we get attached to these qualities, those qualities cause me to, of course, do some actions which are sadasadyo ne janmasu, not only cause good and bad or evil actions, but Bhagwan goes one step further and he says, unfortunately, not only good and bad actions will arise out of good or bad qualities, so magnanimity or miserliness, opposite qualities, but sadasadyo nijanmasu, you will get good or bad wombs, births accordingly. See how far he has gone? One attachment of myself to my qualities, thinking that this is me, this is the compassionate me, this is the cruel me. Of course, we never admit it, but all these qualities then, which is just of matter, of this prakriti, deha, man, buddhi, that's all. And then we attach to it and say, this is me, ye to main hu. Wo main jo hai na, that takes us into actions which are good and bad, and those actions which are good and bad take us to wombs or births which are good and bad. What do you mean good and bad? Okay, so we have talked about it before. We consider a good birth where we have a family all ready for us to give us the knowledge, who are already pious and knowledgeable and steeped in dana and japa and dhyana and magnanimity towards other beings. That is the culture and the spirit of the family already. I don't have to educate myself and work so hard and find a guru when I'm lost and dejected and hurt by the world and suffering. Only in suffering sometimes we seek the truth, right? Or seek God. So arto artharti jigyasu, and of course jnani. Bhagwan has said in chapter 7, 4 kinds of people seek me. Arto artharti. Arto is the one who is already suffering. So we don't have to work so hard then. And then sink into suffering and then look for God. And sometimes not even that. Waste that life anyway. Then go into many lives. Say, Bhagwan will give a good life. How? If you are detached to this prakriti which we call myself. So when we see outside of us, there are some people who are definitely underprivileged and have less, and they seem to be less lucky than us. All we need is compassion for them, because they are there and we are here because of our purva karma. Today our karma will decide we could be where they are in our next janmas. We could be where they are. Why? Who is deciding? Bhagavan is saying karanam guna sangosva. You are attached to your own qualities and acting according to them. You are not able to detach yourself and say, look, I am spirit, I am just doing my functions in the world of matter, and I am not going to attach to papa or punya. Bhagavan has mentioned papa and punya before. Now when you see these underprivileged people, what is it? How this compassion tells us, okay, I know now that there is some karma, something in the past, doesn't matter, and we do our evil karma out of ignorance, right? And ignorance can easily be forgiven. So we say, okay, doesn't matter. We don't even know what karma has brought what fruit. अपना प्रारब्ध जो अभी हम फेस कर रहे हैं, that is our प्रारब्ध coming from कितनी जन्म का, किस जन्म का fructify हो गया है, किस जन्म का कर्म फल, पता ही नहीं हमको. We ourselves don't know. And so when we see them, we say, okay, something may have been done out of ignorance, it doesn't matter, but there is time to correct it, and we can lead you out of it. How can we help them? You know, the first thought we have is to help, isn't it, when we are feeling compassionate? So one of the shlokas, not in the Gita, but in Subhashita, I think, one of the shlokas said, yes, you must help. But it says, Annadanam Mahadanam. We want to give them food and shelter and support them. Of course, it's a Mahadanam, because that is the basic necessity they need. But the Subhashita says, sorry, beyond that you can't leave them with only Annadan. Annadan, food, clothing, shelter. That is not helping them go beyond. So, Vidya Danam Atah Param. The highest dan or gift which is considered in our Shastras, the highest form, is the gift of Vidya. If we can gain it from somewhere, somehow, and then if we can offer it to someone somewhere. When we have wealth, it comes from somewhere, right? And then we offer it because we have it. Same with Vidya. Annam Danam Mahadanam. But Vidya Danam Ataha Param. Ataha Param is the supreme gift. Because the reason is given in the second line of this Subhashita. Annena Kshanika Triptihi. Anna se to Kshanik, for a momentary time you are going to satisfy that person's hunger. What about that eternal hunger for truth, for liberation, for moksha? Yavat Jivam cha Vidyaya. That comes from Vidya. So therefore, Bhagavan says, Sadasadyo Nijanmasu. Aapke janma, good and evil, will come out of the karma. Karma phal comes from attachment to our deha abhiman. This is who I am. Moving to verse 23, Bhagavan says, I'm just looking for the link. What is this supreme knowledge? What is that supreme knowledge that we need to attach to? That is Upadrashtanumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaraha. Again, he'll give descriptions and we have to go deeper. I am, I meaning the real me, okay? Not the mistaken me. Now we have come so far in the reading of Gita. By now we should be very, with a lot of very fluency and facility, we should be able to distinguish between the mistaken me, that mistake which we make about who I am, this matter, person of Ranga Rupa and function, guna, and that real me which we have forgotten. That's the only mistake we have made. And mistakes are made by anyone actually. So we are not like evil doers. No one is an evil doer if you go to see. Ignorance comes because of the mistake. And the mistake is we have forgotten our true nature. Either no one pointed it out to us or we never bothered to find out. And once we found out, we never bothered to claim it as our own or to attach to it. And then we rushed back into sansar. Either way, it is a forgotten true nature. And therefore the solution is that, the only solution is that we develop certain amount of vivek, distinction between sat and asat, changing and unchanging, nitya and anitya, vivek. And a certain amount of vivek will bring you the vairagya. Detachment to sansar will come out of it. So vairagya and vivek are our only two small little instruments. And we are all capable of it. Everyone can use this instrument. It is not beyond anybody's reach. So vivek and vairagya are the two little instruments to go beyond this mistaken identity. I'm wearing a mask and someone has to help me to unmask myself, and the Shastras are doing it, holding a mirror up. Not only peeling off the mask, which is very painful, because we say, "Arey, ye sansar mein ye to mera hai, wo to mera hai." How painful it is to peel off our attachments to family, property, religion, country, nationality. How hard it is. And then the Shastra holds up a mirror. Arey, this is your true self. That's the only purpose of the Shastras actually. To peel off the mask, which is vivek, this is you, this is not you, and vairagya, to detach. Or the other way around. To peel off is vairag, and vivek is to see the true self. So what happens now is that when I see the true self, Bhagwan says, Arey, you were not the actor at all. You were upadrashtanu manta. You were a close witness. You were just a witness to all that was going on around you and in your mind and in the sansar. Upadrashta, verse number 23, first word. And that Supreme Purush is you, and it is only a drashta. And it is actually the Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwaraha. It is the fulfiller, supporter. Fulfiller, why? Because when we make a wish and we want to achieve something, we gain the power and the drive to gain it. And that fulfiller, that Bharta, comes from the sentiency or that energy power or that divine power which we have. So many words used. So we'll just call it the spirit self. And that gives us the grace. The grace is then bestowed upon us and we say, oh, I'm bestowed with a lot of grace and I have achieved what I wanted. No, that grace comes from our own true nature, which is the Bharta and the Bhokta. Bhokta we have seen, it is helping us experience everything, and it is Maheshwaraha. It is the Lord. It's the ultimate I, the true I, not the body, mind, intellect I. Maheshwaraha. Paramatmeti chapyuktaha. So, the Supreme Self, I am the Supreme Being, chapyuktaha, and it is called Dehesmin Purushah Paraha. It is in this body. Why such an elaborate discourse has Krishna does he have to give Arjun about the very distinction of Kshetra, Kshetragam and the world of matter and spirit? And the whole chapter is called Kshetra, Kshetragam Vibhaga Yogaha. Yogo. Why? Why so much distinction? For the simple reason that now comes the crux of the whole thing. The crux of the whole thing is that unfortunately that spirit which is the true self, and that prakriti which is not the true self, they become so closely entwined with each other, so closely attached and associated with each other, that it is as if the true self, the spirit self, becomes conditioned by the actions, by the thoughts, and by the karma of this body. I'm going to leave you only with one example, and we carry on with this tomorrow, because there is a very far-reaching consequence to this association. If they get entangled and entwined and associated as if they are one, there's a big consequence for us. It means that the residual impressions of the karta, the prakriti, the body, mind, intellect, that karta impressions will carry over as a residual impression over and over in the sukshma sharir of man buddhi, carried on the wings of man buddhi. Man buddhi, not as we are using now, that is the sthula expression of it. There is a sukshma expression of it. Man buddhi, carried on its wings, it carries on with our baggage of vasanas over and over again into the future lives. which means that if I die and my body now cannot feel any sukha dukkha, wow, it cannot feel even raga dvesha, wow, I'm free of it. No, unfortunately I'm not free of my raga dvesha and likes and dislikes and hates and loves and attachments, and I'm not free of it even when I die. This is the great revelation of the scriptures. I don't feel it, I don't experience it, but I'm not free of it. I have not freed myself, because they will carry over as my residual baggage, residual impression. Vasana is the term given by the Shastra, over and over and over again. Big mistake. So the example I'm going to leave you with today is that of a ball of iron. Iron ball, if you look at its structure and its shape and Ranga Rupa, it is silvery steel-like color, and if to the touch it is cool, not cold, not hot, it's cool. Now the same ball of iron you put in fire. After a while, what happens? You pull out that ball of iron and it has new qualities. It has the quality of heat. You cannot touch it now. It's burning hot and it is red. It's red hot. We say na, red hot iron, aise bolte hai na. Where did it get its qualities of redness and heat? You leave it there for some time and the next day it has gone back to its original nature of coolness and silvery white color. Because redness and heat was not its original nature. It adopted it, it adapted it, it borrowed it from the fire. In the same way, our spirit actually in its original nature is pure. It has no kama, krodha, mada, lobha, moha. But when it is attached to this body and this karma, the karma phala of all our prakriti actions and the gunas that we carry, tamasic, sattvic, rajasic, that spirit which has now become conditioned, like the iron ball got conditioned by the fire, that spirit seems to get conditioned by the actions and the gunas of this body, of the self which we call body, mind, intellect, guna, tamasic or rajasic or sattvic, whatever our habits. And those habitual swabhava, gunas, are carried as vasana to the next life and they take fruit. That is the biggest danger. This is the danger against which the Shastras are warning us over and over and over again. That if you want to be free, make sure that this self remains pure, not conditioned. And we are conditioning it all the time because of the association. And I say, ye mere gun hai, ye mere habits hai. And so this merapan with the prakriti self, the false self, prakriti, becomes the nature, so-called nature of the spirit carried over forward to the many lives. That is our bandhan. So when we say Janma Bandhan, this is what they are talking about. You want freedom from it? Yes, I want. Of course I want. Let's look at it tomorrow further on. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.